Shay Russell for mining.com.au, and joining me today is a man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. That is Rick Rule, who humbly refers to himself as a private speculator. Rick, how are you going?
The better for being back on with you, Shay. Thank you for having me back, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you so much. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. It's very exciting times. But enough about me. I've specifically asked to have you on today to talk about one subject in particular. Now, you and I have had some very exciting and in-depth discussions about mining in general in the past. But today I want to talk about uranium and nuclear energy. Now, I don't expect you to be a political expert, but Australia has somewhat accidentally kicked off the nuclear energy conversation. Now, personally, I think it's absurd that a major mining nation such as Australia doesn't have nuclear energy already. Tell me, do you have a view on this?
Well, Shay, with the caveat that I'm broadly pro-nuclear and broadly anti-government,
Started well.
my point of view might amuse some of your audience. First of all, Australia has a wonderful uranium endowment, both in terms of natural resources, but also in terms of human resources. It's interesting that perhaps as a consequence of the three mines policy, Australian people, humans, professionals, have brought wealth and revenues to countries around the world, with the possible exception, of course, of Australia. It might be that Australian voters would like to deal with that inconsistency. Two, it would seem as though the Labour Party, with their express preference for a cleaner environment, might be interested in a source of electrical generation that didn't generate carbon. I realize that the flavor du jour for carbon-free energy is alternatives, but the Labour Party might refresh their memory with one statistic. We have, by we, I mean humankind, invested in excess of $5 trillion US dollars in the last 40 years in alternative energies to replace fossil fuels. And we've reduced the market share of fossil fuels from a high of 82% 40 years ago, all the way down, Shay, to 81% today. That arithmetic is very, very inconvenient for opponents of nuclear power that have the sense that there should be less particulate pollution or less carbon pollution. Another statistic that I hope, Shay, that you refresh your Labour friends with is that there are 1 billion people on Earth, poor people, the professed constituency of Labour, that have no access to electricity at all. Those people would like to live the way that you live and the way that I live. It is partially the anti-nuclear stance of people like Labour and their global allies that stand in the way of this 1 billion people on Earth not having access to primary electricity. Parties that are conventionally believed to be pro-labor or to the left of center might examine the United States' own, what I would describe of as left of center government. I'm not defending all aspects of the government, but one thing that amuses me about them is that in 4 short years, they've gone from vilifying uranium to, in typical leftist fashion, deciding to subsidize it. I hope the Australian government doesn't go that far, but I hope that they get comfort from the actions of their bedfellows to the left of the political spectrum around the world, favoring uranium development. And I hope that uranium development in Australia takes the place both in terms of building uranium mines in South Africa, in Australia, bringing employment, bringing wealth, bringing all that. But I hope that it is also considered as an alternative for increasing the reliability, decreasing the price, and increasing the environmental sensitivity of power generation in Australia.
Timely you mentioned that, because we just had an inflation print that was quite high, largely to do with electricity generation. Funny you should bring that up. Listen, Rick, you have backed uranium exploration stocks in Australia for a considerable period of time. Some would say you were a little crazy for investing in Paladin for as long as you did, because I believe when you invested in Paladin, it tanked for a long time. Why did you spy the potential in Australian uranium stocks all the way back then? And also, too, why did you stick with your conviction that Paladin was one day going to be big?
I have learned in my career that you make money in commodities by investing in them when they were out of favor. In in 1998, it's difficult to imagine how out of favor uranium was. It had been in a 20-year bear market, of course, after 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl. And the consequence of that is I started to do some arithmetic around uranium. The stuff was selling, if my memory serves me correctly, for about $8 a pound. And it was costing the industry, including the state controlled firms, and including cost of capital, about $30 a pound. So the industry was losing $20 a pound and being dumb miners trying to make it up on volume. But it occurred to me that either the price of uranium had to go up to the point where the industry was earning its cost of capital, or it would be unavailable. And if it were unavailable in certain major markets like the US, the lights would go out. So I thought, what's more likely? Will the price of uranium go up or will the lights go out? And I decided to take door A. I was studying around for uranium companies, particularly uranium juniors, and I had occasion to go to a wonderfully amusing conference in those days called Diggers and Dealers. It might have been uncomfortable for you there in those days, but it was very pleasant for me. And wandering around Diggers and Dealers, dodging skimpies and all that kind of stuff, I ran into a strange human being, a wonderful guy named John Borshoff, who had if my memory serves me correctly, a 1.8 million Australian dollar junior in the uranium business. His booth was noticeably empty, always a good sign. And I remember going up to him saying, "So, Mr. Borshoff, explain to me how, with a $1.8 billion market cap, you're going to be able to explore for uranium." And he gave me the best single answer to a question I have ever enjoyed. He said, "I don't have to." I said, "Well, how does that work? How do you find it if you don't have to?" He said, "I got my severance compensation from the West German uranium industry by them giving me their database. And I have the possession of a database that cost the German government $1 billion in exploration expenditure. I don't have to explore for anything. All I have to do is stake stuff that I already discovered." And I immediately fell in love with this crazy old John Borshoff. And we did that. If I recall correctly, I raised him $2 million against an $8.5 million market cap. Saved the company check, probably. And he used that to go stake a couple of deposits, including Leger Heinrich, which he'd already discovered with West German money. And as you say, it was a wild ride. After I did that 10-cent financing, if my memory serves me well, the stock had a definite move, but sadly, Shay, in the wrong direction. It moved from 10 cents to a penny. When you have a 90% loss, pardon me, in your portfolio, you don't have a hold. You either have a buy or a sell. And I refreshed my memory, decided that I was right, the market was wrong, mercifully bought some more, not at a penny, sadly, a penny and a half. And from that penny and a half bottom, I watched the stock in 6 or 7 years go to $10. A truly spectacular romp. Now, after the bloom came off the uranium rose temporarily, and after John added a bunch of debt at Paladin, the stock round tripped a fair bit of that. I'm delighted to say, without me, one round trip was enough.
Well, when you've got a conviction to still hold at a penny and buy more, when it tops out, it's time to take your money off the table and be thankful.
You are correct.
Listen, that was an incredible success story. And how much of that story is about your first investing foray into Australia, can I ask? I've never asked this question
Oh, I go
in all
back
these
in
years.
Australia to the late 1970s.
Oh, back in the Wild West
Yeah.
days. It was run by crooks and charlatans, I'm told.
And as a matter of fact, you probably wouldn't describe what I did in Australia as investing. I had the good fortune to run into a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy, at least from my point of view, Robert de Crespigny, who was active in the Australian, penny markets, and ended up building Normandy.
Hmm.
Some people might object to what he did and how he did it. Obviously, from my standpoint, uh, he was a wonderful guy. I also ran into an extraordinary human being who's still active in the Australian market named James Askew, who basically knew everyone in Australia and could say to me with a simple nod of his head, a good guy, not a good guy. And a lot of the success that I enjoyed in Australia and also with Australian issuers in Africa was really a consequence of hanging as tightly as I possibly could to the coattails of Jim Askew.
Rick, as you've just pointed out, you had extraordinary success with Paladin, but locally, like referring to Australian based uranium explorers, what I want to know is can we do it again? Because, obviously everybody wants to find another Olympic dam, but is that potential still out there?
Oh no, I absolutely think you can do it again. You look at the success that Australian companies have enjoyed overseas looking for uranium, and you wonder what they might be able to do if they were allowed to look at home. Certainly, the geology in various Australian terrains, the terrain, in the Northern Territories, then the uh, terrain, down where Boss is, South Australia, the terrain in WA. There's opportunity for uranium exploration through the length and the breadth of the country. And despite the idiotic three mines policy, there is a lot of human resources in Australia that is absolutely world class with regards to uranium. The only question is when will the Australian government allow the marriage of Australian terrain with Australian talent? What's really interesting to note to me, Shay, and this is highlighted, I think, by the recent agreement by Paladin to take over fission, is the changing dynamic of the uranium market itself. And I think Australian investors and punters really need to take this into account. Increasingly, the spot market, while it inhabits a place in people's imagination, is a less important place to trade uranium. The uranium trades are taking place in the term market. And what's important about that understanding is that producers or potential producers, including fairly small companies, can forward sell enough of their production for periods of time as long as 20 years and understand what the minimum price will be and what the minimum volumes will be. That market, the certainty in that market, isn't repeated in any other commodity on the planet. The important thing about that is that a fairly small company that was able to obtain uranium purchase agreements with an investment grade counterparty and was able to, as an example, get a fixed price contract building a mine and mill, could then take both of those documents to the bank, provided that the taker was investment grade, and finance their mine into production without the help of a major. This circumstance in my 50 years in the commodities business has never been encountered before. So a company like Paladin can show the market that they have access to capital if they can sign offtake agreements. Nobody believed that Paladin, in the throes of putting their African projects in production, would be able to finance the construction of a project in a fairly remote part of Canada. But the changing dynamics in the uranium market make a lot of things possible that weren't possible as recently as 5 years ago. And the punters, never mind that, the investment banks, seem to be oddly not aware of how the uranium finance market has changed.
You're absolutely right. These are incredible circumstances that uranium explorers and soon to be developers find themselves in. Now, Rick, I did promise a short, sharp interview today. Before we wrap up today's conversation, I know you like to make an offer to help rank people's uranium stocks. What is this offer?
I do, not just about uranium, but about natural resources generally. If you like what I have to say, care about the way I think, I can personalize it. If you go to my website, ruleinvestmentmedia.com, and list your natural resource stocks, I personally will rank them 1 to 10, 1 being best, 10 being worst. I'll comment on individual issues if I think my comments might have any value. Understand that there are probably 90 uranium juniors worldwide. There are probably only 12 that are worthwhile. To find out if you're 12 or among the good 12, go to ruralinvestmentmedia.com. It's absolutely free. There's no obligation.
Now, for everybody listening, I actually will provide a link so you can go have your portfolio ranked by Rick to see if you do own any of the 12 good uranium exploration stocks out there. Also, too, I have personally run this gauntlet by having Rick rate some of the stocks in my portfolio, and you probably should worry if he hasn't heard of your exploration stocks. Now, Rick, enough about portfolio ranking. It has been too long between drinks for you and I will be joining you at the Rule Investment Symposium in less than 2 weeks now, and I can tell you this Melburnian is very ready for some warmer weather. But for everybody listening who hasn't come along to this event before, what can they expect?
Well, if you come to the symposium and come on the boat cruise, you will see Rick Rule buy a beer for a very attractive Australian redhead, first of all. That's worth the price of admission all by itself. But I guess in a more serious vein, you can expect wonderful big picture thinkers. The Jim Rickards of the world, the Nomi Princes of the world, the Grant Williams of the world, the Bill Bonners of the world, people who tell you about the way the world really is, not the way that, let's say, ABC or CNBC might wish it were. Once that job has been done, we will have analysts and portfolio managers with 2 and 3 and 4 decades of experience in the natural resources business, not investment banking flunkies that failed at crypto and failed at technology and have parachuted into mining in hopes of failing somewhere else. My favorite feature is the living legends, uh, entrepreneurs who have built multi-billion-dollar companies from scratch, telling you how they did it and telling you what they learned, giving you the tools to identify the $5 million market cap that will become a $5 billion market cap. In addition to that, Shay, as you know, no exhibitor is permitted on our exhibit floor if their shares aren't owned by the conference sponsors. Sadly, the fact that I own something is no guarantee that it goes up. Look at my early success with Paladin. But the truth is that the process is honest. There's no other conference I know that has vetted every single exhibitor by making share purchases in them. Having all of those things being true allows me to say to your Australian audience, whether you attend live, which is what I would prefer, or in the comfort and convenience of your own home via live stream, you will have access to recordings of the entire proceedings, 60 hours over 4 days. You'll need them because we're going to give you more content than you can absorb in the 4 days that you have to absorb them. But a bigger promise than that, whether you attend live or live stream, if you aren't completely satisfied that I've delivered value for your purchase, email me. I'll give you your money back. There's a 100% gold plated guarantee that if you don't believe I have earned the tuition that I charge you, that I will in fact refund it.
You are correct in saying that there is too much content to actually absorb on your own. You absolutely do need to watch the replays. I can vouch for this one. But also, true, that is an incredible gold plated guarantee that you're offering. Has anyone ever taken you up on it?
We had no live attendees ask for their money back last year. We had 3 live stream attendees, 2 of whom said that the reason that they asked for their money back was because the information that we gave them was over their head. In other words, we gave them too much content. Turnabout's fair play. I absolutely, if I offer a gold-plated money-back guarantee, I offer it up. I don't require people to tell me why they wanted the money back, but we ask people to do that so that we can improve the service. And as I say, 2 of the 3 people who asked for their money back, by the way, out of 1,300, asked for their money back because we gave them too much information, pardon me.
For everybody who wants to come along to the conference, either virtually or in person, stick around to the end of this video because I will show you how you can get your hands on some tickets. But Rick, for your information, this will actually be my 6th year attending this conference. Of course, 2 of those are in person. And mate, I'll just let you know, not only am I happy to get out of the cold, I am extremely looking forward to you buying me that beer.
Well, thank you for your efforts on behalf of Australian punters now for a long time. Thank you, too, for the bully pulpit for which to comment on your domestic politics. And thank you in particular for your support and attendance at the conference. I look forward to buying you that beer.
The Rural Investment Symposium starts on the 7th of July in Boca Raton, Florida. If you want to join Rick and I either in person or virtually, to get your hands on a ticket, simply go to mining.com.au, click on the events tab, head to the Rural Investment Symposium page and enter your details there to buy a ticket. I hope to see you there.